Well, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Make yourself at home. Have a drink. While I give some attention to some underappreciated characters and storylines that I personally love. And I hope you grow to love as well.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back. Today we are reading Swamp Thing number 142, and just a little catch up on what's been going on. The now human Alec Holland has been researching plants that have psychedelic properties in the Amazon, and he is using himself as a test subject. So he's been taking these drugs made from plants, and because of that, he's been having a lot of visions of what he thinks are dreams of a past life where he was this swamp monster, and he had a wife and kid, and pretty much everything that we've read up until now in Swamp Thing was a fever dream brought on by these psychedelic plants. But the problem is Alec feels like this is more than just dreaming. After having these visions, he's starting to feel like maybe he's not a real human, and he's basically having a crisis of identity. In the meantime, a new Swamp Thing has risen, but this new Swamp Thing doesn't seem to have a human guiding voice in it, and it is going around to all the places that it remembers from Alec Holland's life, and it's trying to destroy those things because it doesn't like those memories. So it first heads to Chester's house and kills the people that are now living there, and now he seems to be going after Abby. So that is where we left off, with Abby running away so that this new Swamp Thing doesn't kill her new boyfriend, Dawn. So she's on the run, and then while walking through the jungle to try to get back to civilization, Alec fell into another hallucination where he is boarding some kind of mystical train, and that is where we left off. So first things first, with issue 142, we got the cover. We see there is a man, I'm assuming it's Alec, sitting atop of a small train, like if it was a toy train. And he's surrounded by all kinds of horrific types of monsters, but they look like things that would be in a carnival. So there's like a clown and what looks like, I guess, maybe people from a freak show. It definitely looks like he's driving this train into some sort of nightmare world. And we also see on the cover that this is written by Grant Morrison and Mark Miller, with art by Phil Hester and Kim DeMolder. And we start off in the mountains of the South American jungle area, where there's some train tracks that weave between these mountains. And on the tracks, we see a couple of teenage boys hanging out, and one of them is saying, "Bullshit. That's all I gotta say to you, Diego. Give me some more of that weed." And Diego hands the boy the joint and says, "You can say bullshit all you want. All I'm telling you is what my tia told me. She saw the ghost train when she was just a little kid, right here on this spot. They say the driver is a skeleton, and if the train stops for you, you have to get on board." Then the first boy says, "Jesus, man, never mind this shit. It's too late to be hanging around here anyway." And just then, a flicker of something catches the first boy's eyes, and he says, "What's that? Look, look." And Diego doesn't look up initially, and he says, "Like I'm gonna fall for that one. You're just a wimp, and that's..." But he's cut off as he sees what the first boy was talking about, and what it is the light of a train coming, and he says, "Shit, oh shit, this can't be for real." And the first boy yells, "Get out of here, man. Jesus Christ, get out of here. It's screaming, man. They're all screaming." And as Diego and the first boy run away, he yells, "Don't look at it, Diego. Don't look." And as the train passes by the two boys, we see this for sure is not a normal train. Parts of it that would be made of metal are made of skeletons and bone. We see where the boiler would be for the engine. It is full of fetuses. And inside the train, through the windows, we can see lots of ghostly figures that are screaming. And we see the name of this issue is Soul Train. Then we cut to inside that train to Alec Holland sitting by himself. And his narration says, "I don't know how long I've been on this train. Hours, days, years? Where are we going? I don't belong with these people. I shouldn't be here." And then one of the other passengers that's close by, that's also wrapped in bandages, says, "I'm hungry. Are we there yet? I'm hungry." And then the woman sitting next to that man pulls out a hand of something from a bag. And whatever it is, it looks disgusting. It's steaming and it's very, very chunky. And the woman brings this pile of whatever in her hand and begins to feed it to the bandage-wrapped person next to her who was saying he was hungry. And we also see that her eyes are sewn shut as she feeds this man. And she says, "Shh, hush, eat and be still. See? And as Alec tries to ignore that, the usher begins to walk down the middle aisle of the train asking for tickets. But this usher doesn't look like a normal usher. I mean, he's wearing the same kind of uniform, but he has what looks like a metal skeleton, and he is being held up by a pulley system that is strapped to the bandages that are wrapped around his arms and neck. And as he gets to Alec, he says, "Tickets, please." But Alec just stares at him blankly because he doesn't really have a ticket. And in fact, in the last issue, the guy that sent him on this journey that was in the bar said that he did not need a ticket for the Soul Train. But the usher doesn't really make a fuss about it. He just moves on, and we hear another passenger yell out, "Oh, please." And we see the passenger who is pleading is a pregnant woman, and she's saying, "No, oh no, I'm begging you, not my baby, not my baby." And we see she is talking to a couple of deranged-looking children that are holding her down in her seat, and they have her legs spread open, and they're waiting in front of her with a knife and fork, and one of them says, "I can see its head." So it seems these gruesome children are waiting for the baby to be born so they can eat it. And luckily, we cut away from that scene before anything gets crazier. And we cut back to Alec, who's just sitting by himself still on the train. And he's looking out the window and he's seeing some gruesome sights as he passes by some people that have been crucified and what look like natives dancing around a big fire. And there's like a ram's head and a bunch of rats hanging from another cross. And as Alec sees this, he thinks, "This is a madhouse, rattling and roaring on iron wheels. I'm dreaming, hallucinating on magical plants. I must be. But I can feel my tears, and I know they're not salt water. I'm weeping green ooze, the thin pulp of vegetable matter. I cover my eyes, but the sounds are worse than the sights. Where am I? How did I end up here? Hurtling through the broken-backed houses and oil fires, all the way from that hospital in the jungle to this place. Lost among horrors and monsters. My skin itches and crawls. I can feel insects in there." So Alec begins to focus on his forearm, and he starts to pinch the skin. And as he does this, the skin begins to tear, and we see underneath it is a forearm that's made from plants. And his narration continues. "Not human. Unnatural. Let this trip end." Then we cut to Abby, who is in the middle of the desert, and she has stopped to get gas at a gas station. And we see that she is loading up on gas because she has a bunch of gasoline receptacles in the back of her trunk that she has also filled. And the gas attendant that's filling up her car sees all those containers and he says, "Jesus, that's a hell of a lot of gas you got there, miss, if you don't mind me saying." And Abby doesn't really pay attention to him. She just says, Right. Well, you can't be too careful in the desert." Then as Abby gets in her car and the attendant puts the gas nozzle away, he notices that there's something on the back of her trunk, but we can't see it. And he yells up to her, "You want me to clean this up at the back here?" And she says out the window as she drives off, Thanks, no. I'm kind of in a hurry right now." And as she speeds off, the man watches her leave and he says, "And you can kiss my ass too, bitch." Then we cut to the car as it drives off, and we see that Abby takes off her sunglasses and she begins to cry. And all of a sudden she hears something whisper in her mind, "Abby, Abby, Abby." And she begins to cry more and says, "Oh my God, Alec, is that you? Oh God, I can hear you in my mind. Are you trying to tell me something? What is it?" And then we cut to the outside of the car where we see she is passing a sign that says, "Only 300 miles to Arizona." And we also get a shot of the back and we see what the gas attendant was talking about when he asked if he could wipe it off. And we see there is a bit of plant matter that has a Swamp Thing face. And it seems like this is the thing that she's hearing. And as she drives off, we hear it say, "Abby, Abby." So it seems like it was definitely evilly yelling there at the end. So this might be the evil Swamp Thing that is latched onto her car. Then we cut back to the train and it is reaching a new station. And as it slows down, Alec's narration says, "Train's coming to a stop and someone is screaming, 'Hold my hand!' over and over again. 'Hold my hand! I don't want to go!' Who's screaming? Is it me? My pants are damp and sticky and I realized I've wet myself, but it's not urine, not human urine. It's sap. No more. Please, no more." So as Alex sits in his seat in a puddle of urine, the train comes to a stop, and we see there is a man waiting on the platform that enters the train, and this guy is definitely spooky. He has a really long trench coat with lots of little pieces hanging off of it, and then he's got a long walking stick and a really wide brim hat, so you can't see the top of his face. And as he walks down to the center aisle of the train, he sees Alec Holland, and he stops right next to him and just stares at him. And Alec, who I guess kind of was trying to retreat and figure out a way to wake up, had closed his eyes and is just sitting on the seat thinking to himself, please, let me wake up. But the trenchcoat man standing next to him says, Dr. Holland? And Alec looks up and says, yes? And as Alec looks up, we get a good look at this old man, and we see under his wide brim hat, he has a very long white beard and mustache, so he kind of looks like Gandalf the Grey, basically. But if Gandalf had a black trench coat and a wide-brimmed black fedora on. And the old man replies, I have news for you. I have sent forth through thought and memory into the lands beyond, through streets of dreaming windows and lost libraries. I will tell you what they told me. But Alec cuts him off saying, who are you? Do I know you? And we also see that the man has an eye patch that's covering his left eye, but his right eye has a red pupil. So he stares at Alec with a very intense gaze from his one eye, and he says, I am the one who travels where he will, a wanderer, electrical messenger. Once I had friends here, but I died to gain knowledge, and I am not what I was. My friends would not recognize me now. And then the old man sits down on the seat across from Alec, so he's facing him now. And Alec doesn't seem to care about what the old man has to say. He rudely says, I don't care. You've got to help me get out of this place. This terrible place. I've been taking drugs and I think I've done something to my mind. I have to get away from here. These people. But the old man cuts Alec off saying, the train is empty, Dr. Holland. And as Alec looks around, he realizes that what the old man said is true. All the weird people that were on the train have now vanished. And he says, oh, Jesus, I'm going insane. What's happening to me? And the old man responds, it's not the mushrooms, not the vine. Those things only helped you remember what you truly are, or were. Surely you know by now. You were the swamp thing, remember? The earth elemental, a green thought and a green shade. Stop forgetting. It's the forgetting that brings this pain. And Alec replies, but that was the dream. The dream I had. The drugs, You're telling me I'm not a human being? That's horrible. And the old man continues, don't you recall how you were punished by those who oversee the green world? Your human aspect was always too strong. It led you to defy the will of the Parliament of Trees too often. And under this dialogue between the old man traveler and Alec, we're getting some flashes of kind of what he's talking about. And we see a flash of all the members of the Parliament of the Trees. And then we see Swamp Thing, and he's crying out in pain as a ghostly figure is bursting out of his chest. And the old man's narration continues. They were forced to chasten you, to put a stop to your rebellion against the quiet way of the wood. Why do you think your daughter was taken from you? They reached out and cut away the human template from which your consciousness was forged. And finally, we're getting some explanation about what happened in between Nancy Collins' run and Grant Morrison and Mark Millar's run. And it seems that the Parliament of Trees passed judgment on Swamp Thing, and they decided to make him less human, so they separated his human essence from his Swamp Thing body. And that was the ghostly figure that was shooting out of Swamp Thing's body in the panel below this narration. And we see the body of the Swamp Thing that has lost the Alec Holland essence fall to the ground and collapse. And as his body heals from that trauma, he looks up and his face looks very angry, like he's going to go on a rampage. And over these panels, the narration from the old man continues. They cast out the human core of your being, ejected the Holland mind, and left only the swamp monster, a force of raw nature, a mindless thing with only the will to be, like the shoot that bursts up towards the sun, shattering concrete. Then the old man starts talking about what happened to Alec Holland's spirit once it left Swamp Thing's body, and he explains, and what of you? An aggregation of incoherent memories and desires and fears, too powerful ever to be destroyed. You were hurled wildly through the haunted country where specters and shades dwell, seeking incarnation, and from there you entered spaces of a different sort and met those others. They exist at the very limits of comprehension, but sometimes we can reach them. They come to us when we are children,
masquerading as the spirits of favorite toys. They came to you again when you journeyed through the vine.
Then Alec Holland, who doesn't look like he's dealing with this information very well, says,
This is insane. How can you know this stuff? It's insane.
And I guess to try to comfort him, the old man walks over to Alec and says,
Let me finish, Dr. Holland. I have a very short time here. The swamp monster will kill Abby. It will kill your wife unless you confront it and reclaim its power.
And Alec replies, What are you talking about? My wife's name was... It was Linda. What happened to Linda?
Shit. Abby? Oh my God.
So it seems like Alec is all kinds of confused because he's thinking about Linda, who was his first wife that died in issue 1 of Swamp Thing. So it's like all of his memories from like all the volumes of Swamp Thing, even the ones from the 70s, are kind of mishmashed together and he's confused. But the old man just continues and doesn't really address the confusion of Alec, and he says,
Your trials have only begun. They tried to prepare you for what lies ahead. They did what they could, and they sent you back. Finally, with force of sheer naked will, you built yourself a copy of the body of the man you once were. Skeleton of tropical hardwood, organs of soft fruit, skin of rose petals.
And under this narration, we're seeing in the panels that this Alec Holland that we've been with is some sort of plant. It's grown itself a body from plants, but it's made it so realistic that it fools people, and I guess itself, that it is a human. And the old traveler continues,
You erected a scaffolding of false memories to rest there to hide from the anger of the Parliament of Trees. There can be no more rest. The time for hiding has passed. Do you understand me?
And Alec answers, Then I'm dead. I died in a fire a long time ago. All of those nightmares were true, and everything else is a lie. I'm just a ghost made of flowers. And the old man says to Alec,
You woke from reality into a dream. It's time to return. You know I'm telling you the truth. Hold up your hand and concentrate.
So Alec does what the old man says, and as he concentrates on his hand, his finger begins to grow some vines. And as Alec watches this, he says, Dear God. But the old man doesn't really let Alec sit there for too long looking at his finger, because he continues saying,
But hurry. Abby is running now. She runs to where she hopes it will have least power, but it is following close behind and will not stop until it has destroyed all of its ties to the human world. And when all of this is over, you must run also. You cannot travel in the green, but there is a dreadful place where the Parliament dare not follow, east in the European night. There you will make your final stand against them, and the first ordeal will be over one way or another.
But it seems like Alec isn't fully listening to what this old man is saying, because he's just sitting there leaning against his hands saying, Abby? Like if he's having a hard time remembering exactly who she is. But then the old man pulls something out of his coat and says,
I have to go now, but I have something for you. Here.
And what the old man pulled out was a lighter, and as he hands it to Alec, Alec says, What's that for? I don't smoke. Jesus, I'm not even a human being. But he does take it, and as the old man walks away, he says,
You'll know what to do when the time comes. I think this is your stop now. Hurry.
And as Alec looks out the window to see what platform they're at, he says, What? I don't see any. And when he turns to finish his sentence to the old man, he sees the old traveler has vanished. But not only that, everything has kind of changed where he's at. Instead of a train, now he sits in the very front of what looks like a roller coaster. And of course he's surprised and he says,
Wait, my God.
And then the roller coaster starts to move and it goes through a door. And when that door closes behind Alec, we see a big painted skull on it that looks like it's hovering over Alec. And as the car moves forward, we see that he enters some sort of weird carnival, but it's not only a carnival. We are getting little panels that show it look like a video game, and it says level 3 complete at the top. And when I say video game, I mean it looks like it has a little pixelated Alec Holland sitting in a pixelated roller coaster cart. And we see shadows of 3 men like they're watching this video game take place. And from the shadows, we can tell that one of them is Roberto, who is the shaman that sent Alec on the trips in the first place. One of them is the man from the table at the bar that told him to go on the train. And the other is the old traveler. and they're talking to each other saying,
"He's through. Not bad, huh? I wonder if he suspects anything." "Oh, I don't think so. Not yet. Anyway, it's best that he doesn't know too much, isn't it?"
And the Traveler is a skilled manipulator of the truth.
And as the man from the bar gives that cackle, we see that Alec is entering level 4, which is called Death Garden. There's a big tree in the middle of this panel with a white skull that has grown in the middle of this tree's trunk. And as we turn the page, we see Alec has entered the carnival grounds where this roller coaster car had stopped to drop him off. And he hears laughing as he's walking through, so he begins to freak out and he kind of starts running through all the attractions. And also, there's no one else at this carnival. No other patrons are walking around. It's just him running like crazy through the rides. And then, kind of unexplainably, as we turn the page, we see that he has appeared in Louisiana in the swamps. And I'm not exactly sure how this happened because the old traveler said he couldn't travel through the green. But apparently he was able to travel through the dream state that he was in and was able to wake up in Louisiana after being in the Amazon. But either way, he's walking through the swamp now, and as he does, his narration says, "Home doesn't feel like home anymore, and the bayou sulks and steams and is silent. No birds sing, nothing moves. A crane huddles on a branch, blinking dazed, like the survivor of some terrible accident. I can smell cooking now, and the skinny, sick fuming of bad meat drifting through the trees. And behind all that, a heavy coppery tang, thick as fog. It's been here. The swamp thing has been here." And as Alec gets to a clearing, he pushes through a bush, and as he does, blood begins to fall on him from the trees above, and as he looks at the clearing in front of him, he says, "No!" And then we turn the page and we see what he's seeing, and what he's seeing is all the Cajun people that lived in the swamp that he loved and he hung out with, like LeBeau and his family, have all been murdered and are hanging from vines, and most of their bodies have been completely ripped apart and dismembered, and the pieces of them that fell out are now kind of on display from these vines, so it looks like some kind of creepy horror garden. And seeing this, Alec falls to his knees and says, "Oh no." And as Alec just tries to process all this and take it in, one of the heads above him that's hanging from a branch says, "Help us." But Alec doesn't have time to do that. He stands up, and as he looks at everything, he thinks, "It's been here, and now it's gone to finish its work. Abby." Then we cut to a motel somewhere in Arizona where Abby is pulled over to get a room, and a rainstorm, of course, is happening just to make it worse. And as she gets out of the car and into the pouring rain, she says, "Shit, welcome to Arizona." Then she runs into the motel lobby to get a room. Then we see her taking her luggage out of her trunk and walking over to her room. And I should say that she is walking from the outside where it's still raining into this area, because as she's walking, she starts to hear a noise, and she knows what that sound is. So she stops just before the door, and we see the figure of Swamp Thing appear behind her. And she doesn't turn around initially. She just drops her luggage onto the ground, and then Swamp Thing says, "Abby." And then it lunges towards her, and she says, "Oh my God." But unfortunately, that is the last page, my friends. They leave us on this cliffhanger. So we will have to wait until next issue to find out exactly what happens to Abby and this attacking Swamp Thing. So if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email me at planestrains.and-comicbooks, all one word, @gmail.com. And remember, until next time, stay swampy.